Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
¿Están todos bien con el español? Or I do double? Good afternoon for everyone. Okay, we are going to be speaking half in English and half Spanish because mainly of us, we speak mainly Spanish. So sometimes there are some things that are difficult to translate or to express in a language that is not our home, mother tongue, whatever. My name is Natacha. I'm the founder and director of Argentina Performance Art. That is the platform that organized this exhibition in collaboration with NAILAT. That is the New York Triennale of the Art, Latin American Art. So New York Triennale of Latin American Art is the people that owns this house. So son quienes nos invitaron. And in this case, I function as the curator, but I'm not a curator myself. I'm an artist. So this is really special for me because it's the first time that I'm curating a visual exhibition and at the same time 6 different performances. As a performance artist myself, I found different motives of how to develop this curatorial project that is different of a real curator. Because every proposal that they are doing, I'm feeling it in a different way, as a colleague, as an artist myself. So mainly the exhibition is about how the migrant body is constantly trying to be erased, and we are working against that situation. And everything that we are developing to stop that, and also how we are rebirthing again and again in our own, in new personas, our identity, and how they are feeling this same situation in their own bodies. I'm an immigrant myself, so it's also a proposal to see in my fellow artists how they are embracing this feeling that I also carry in my own body. And today, one of the artists that is part of the exhibition, that is Damken, that you can see one of her pieces that is over there, is the chair con los alambres, and also there's a performance that she's doing in the border. I asked her to be the moderator of this conversation. I'm a really big admirer of Damari's work and persona. For me, the persona, a part of the work, is really important as well. And I think I think you're the most smart, well-spoken, also completely bilingual, and she carries this feeling that is so difficult to entender para otras personas, that is to be born and raised in the border. So it's not that she's a completely immigrant as us. She born in the border. So she has this double everything, and she lives in this situation where she's constantly como esta tensión, ¿no? But she's going to speak about that, not me. This is the way I perceive her. And that's why I thought also she was perfect for this moderation. So please.
Thank you, Natacha, so much, and thank you everybody for taking the time to come here and be, sharing space with every single one of us. I feel extremely honored and humbled to have been, thank you for the words. This is my first time moderating an artist talk, but I'm so excited and happy to be sharing the talk with every single one of the amazing and talented individuals that are in this room. And I'm very proud to be sitting here with everyone today. So thank you as well for sharing this. I think just to begin, I'll introduce myself, but also everybody can take a moment to introduce each other, the work and their story briefly to give you guys some more context as to what we have been doing here in this exhibition and beyond outside of this space. So as Natacha said, I am born and raised in the border in South Texas. From McAllen, Texas. My family is Mexican. They live on the Mexican side of the border. I grew up on the U.S. side of the border. And I moved to New York to study, and I began developing my practice and performance through as an experiment and kind of an exploration in the themes and the conversations that were very personally felt by myself and people that I grew up with, what's happening on the border currently, and what has been happening on the border currently, not just here but around the world. And so my performance work has developed in those conversations, very autobiographical, as a way to navigate and process and transmute these dichotomies that that nos atraviesan in our life and in our experience. But I will leave everybody else to talk about themselves. And I don't know who wants to begin. Elisa, you want to begin?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Elisa Luteral. So I was actually born in New York, raised in Argentina by Argentinian parents, and then moved here 3 years ago. I did my studies here. I did an MFA in textiles, and since then I've been slowly getting into performance with my work, and I do mostly installations. I'm here also as a resident for 2 months upstairs. You can also come visit the studio.
So this is the piece of Elisa and also that video. And in her studio, she's developing a long durational performance.
Yes. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
My name is Garcia. I am Ecuadorian. I grew up in Mexico and I've been living in New York for 10 years. Also came to school here, and I mostly do performance and video art.
And Domenica's pieces are the ones that are in this wall, are 2 pictures that are kind of like orange, where she's crying. And we have a sound installation that has arena and 2 conchas.
And you're performing.
And I'm doing a performance later today.
Today, thank you for that.
Stick around.
Today at 4, she's doing the closing performance of the exhibition.
Mi nombre es Yali Romagoza, yo soy de Cuba. Aquí pueden ver mi pieza en la exhibición. También hay una biografía en inglés, yo voy a hablar en español. Mi trabajo se trata sobre mi experiencia como mujer, y esa experiencia como mujer se ha traducido vivir en Cuba, lo que significa vivir en Cuba para una mujer, y cómo eso se traduce en vivir en los Estados Unidos, no solamente como mujer, pero también como inmigrante.
Buenas a todos, mi nombre es Villetka. Mi trabajo es el de allá, el dibujo y la performance de la caja, que ahorita está como un objeto de performance, y también el dibujo y el plato que está allá, que fue parte de la primera performance que hicimos en el ciclo of this year. I found in performance a way to express things that I couldn't express on other way, either like como en el lenguaje o como talking about it. So since then I've used performance as my main medium. I usually talk about the language as like how we understand language and how that como este entendimiento del lenguaje hace que nuestras conductas a futuro o cuando somos mayores estén modificadas by that understanding of language. So how that language we learned and the way we learned it make us the person that we are, basically, and how we perceive other people or how we accept certain type of conducts or in general.
Thank you, Sujay. And we have one more artist, Patricia, who is about to arrive. And so please bear with her when she arrives. We can also do an introduction for her and have a full inclusion of every single participating artist, so we can have space for everybody to talk. So from everybody's introductions, and as you can see, we all encompass a really broad map of this continent, from the border with Mexico through Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, El Caribe, Cuba, and Argentina as well. And I think that within what we understand is the Latin American, Latine, Caribbean experience. Dominican Republic, Patricia is from the DR. So just there's a lot of intersectionality, I think, in the way that each one of us approaches the work that we do and the way that we carry these narratives in our work. And I have a lot of questions, and I'm fascinated by the themes that every single one of us brings and the way that we do that. But I want to try to streamline things in a way that is easy to follow. So I think I would just like to open the conversation and talking about this movement that we all share, coming from our places of origin to now being here in this one place that we share in this space in New York, and how we feel that, as Natacha was saying, this exhibition tries to touch on these nuances of the body and movement, and what does that mean, or how do we personally embody this or feel that we subvert borders while going through borders. And so I think that there's a lot of different approaches to this conversation, but I think I just want to start with Yali. Y te hablo en español y pregunto, and I'll translate if anybody needs to translate. Because I think that one of your pieces, this that we have here on view, is exactly this movement and kind of coming back that you did, going back to Cuba para hacer la performance. Y creo que hablando como una persona que ha dejado su lugar de origen y su hogar, el volver después de tanto tiempo también no solamente es el proceso de irse, sino también el proceso de volver, que para una persona que vive esa experiencia es muy particular. Así que me interesa escuchar de ti cómo fue este proceso haciendo esta performance como Cuquita, estando de vuelta en Cuba, y cómo fue ese proceso para ti.
Sí, gracias. Este es un momento interesante en mi carrera y en mi vida como persona, porque yo estoy cerrando un ciclo. Yo me mudé a los Estados Unidos, yo me escapé de Cuba en el 2011 y vine a vivir a los Estados Unidos. Y han pasado cerca de, 13 años más o menos, ¿no? Y durante esos 13 años yo empecé a descubrir y a entender qué era este país, porque desde Cuba uno tiene esa idea de lo que es los Estados Unidos. Cuba, si algunos saben, que es una isla en el Caribe que desde 1959 está bajo la dictadura de los Castro, que han promocionado la isla como comunismo o socialismo, pero es realmente solamente un régimen militar. Entonces, bajo este titulaje de socialismo, Estados Unidos se convirtió a la propaganda del castrismo como el enemigo, el antígono del comunismo. Entonces toda la política estaba para demonizar a los Estados Unidos. Y no se empiecen a alterar porque sabemos que los Estados Unidos no son santos ni son buenos. Estoy contando la historia de cómo yo era viviendo en Cuba, los cubanos, que cómo se ve eso. Ir a los Estados Unidos significaba, uno, rebelarse contra la figura masculina, que es la figura del padre, que es el terrorista, el que te encierra, el que te domina. Era escapar hacia la libertad. Entonces, toda la visión de los cubanos era ir a escapar a un lugar que fuera fuera de la isla. La isla está rodeada de agua, donde quiera que tú vas te para el agua, no puedes irte a ningún lugar. Entonces, una vez que llego a los Estados Unidos, yo estaba pensando esa relación con los Estados Unidos como un espacio de libertad, como un espacio de salvación. Una vez que llego aquí a los Estados Unidos es un país extremadamente complicado socialmente, racialmente, de posición social, y entonces yo era parte de un problema que ni yo misma entendía. O sea, yo era latina y para los Estados Unidos me veían a mí con diferentes nociones preconcebidas de donde yo venía que ni yo misma entendía. Yo no sé. lo que significaba, pero ya era parte de un problema. Entonces todos estos 13 años han sido para mí tratar de entender mi posición dentro de este espacio, cómo este espacio me percibe a mí y cómo yo lo percibo a él. Y a partir de ahí nació Cuquita, la muñeca cubana, que es un alter ego que rompe o al menos trata de complicar las nociones de raza, de origen cultural, de lenguaje, que me presenta a mí al público con una imagen que nadie sabe qué cosa es. Cuquita constantemente cambia, ella se ve siempre de una manera diferente, está conectada con las cuquitas, que son muñecas de papel que venían en las revistas socialistas para las mujeres cuando yo era niña. Y esa idea de que yo nunca tuve Barbie, yo lo que tuve fue muñecas de papel, creó la plataforma para este alter ego. A este momento, yo hice ese performance en el 2023, es un ciclo. Cuquita nunca ha estado en Cuba como un personaje diaspórico, pero Cuquita va a la tierra que me vio nacer, crecer, el parque donde yo estuve toda mi vida, y se acabó. Ahora yo estoy moviéndome hacia otros territorios que tienen que ver más con la violencia de género, territorios que tienen que ver con el trauma del cuerpo femenino, pero también ese camino hacia la sanación y el empoderamiento.
Gracias. Me parece súper, o sea, visualmente la Cuquita es, o sea, icónica y te he visto hacer otras perfos también en como esa meditación que creo que es también genera una reacción muy en mí, por lo menos, no sé en otras personas, de presenciar ese proceso viéndote hacer perfo. And I'll switch to English because I forget. I know that you also did a performance last week as part of this dialogue that you're carrying. And here you're holding or you're wearing a penis. And in the last performance you also did that, but you were carrying it as a backpack almost on your back. And one thing that caught my attention was that the size of the penis this time was larger.
Getting bigger and bigger.
And you're getting bigger. And I wanted to ask, do you notice that this is something that's happening? Is this intentional? Is this just like a part of your work? You are making them bigger? And then, yes, this experience doing it here on Governor's Island and carrying it, what did you see from other people react? And how was that process?
El pene es o la forma fálica, digamos, porque sí, no es un pene como tal. Es algo que yo siempre he usado como un elemento de enfrentamiento hacia el patriarcado. Yo vengo y no voy a hablar de cultura, solamente voy a hablar de Cuba porque es lo que yo conozco, otros tendrán otras experiencias. Cuba es una sociedad altamente machista. Y uno lo siente desde que nace y no viene solamente desde tu casa, viene desde tu casa, desde la escuela, de tu barrio, hasta el gobierno. Era una carga muy difícil. Inconscientemente para mí, a los 18 años, cuando estaba estudiando Historia del Arte, empecé a hacer esas acciones públicas y empecé a usar exactamente como lo vemos ahí, integrado a las ropas. Yo tengo mucha conexión con el vestuario, estudié moda, trabajé en la industria de la moda y el lenguaje de la ropa es importante para comunicar quién soy y lo que estoy pensando. Entonces, este elemento siempre lo he traído un poco, se ha ido y ha venido, y hace algunos años decidí volverlo a integrar dentro de mis performances con una obra que se llama Do Not Bury Me in Darkness, no me pongan en lo oscuro, que es abiertamente tratando de hacer visible la figura de la mujer latina diaspórica en el mainstream de la historia del arte. ¿Por qué es que no estamos en la historia del arte? ¿Por qué es que no estamos en las mayores galerías? ¿Por qué es que la gente no quiere comprar nuestro trabajo?
Okay, Patricia, here, everyone.
Hola, Patricia.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Un placer.
Y pues nada, ahora yo siento que esta forma fálica se está volviendo predominante dentro de mi trabajo. Estoy súper emocionada con las posibilidades y es una manera de exorcizar. Han habido muchos traumas físicos, mentales, a los que no hay que ahondar demasiado ahora, pero que me han afectado mucho y que han hecho que de manera inconsciente esto se levante y que me haga tener mi poder de nuevo.
I don't know if someone was present last Saturday for the performance, but you can go to Yali's studio upstairs and you can see the big phallus. I don't know, there's a translation for phallus?
Phallic.
The phallic piece, the phallic fabric piece. That is really big. It's like her own size.
Ya, es el tamaño humano, mi tamaño humano. Y está arriba en el estudio con una video documentación de lo que pasó. Así que lo pueden experimentar muy claramente.
And thank you, Yali. Now that Patricia has joined us,
Hi, everybody.
we all had done a round of introductions, so te dejo presentarte.
Oh, of course. Is it Spanish, English?
La
Spanish?
que quieras.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna apologize for getting here so late. MTA in the weekends. It's like, oh, we're in the weekend too. So, my name is Grabación. Thank you, to these amazing women, female, 5 people here, that is open this space for us to showcase our art. And my piece is Tropical Libres. Is the one in the TV in the back with the ceramic hands. It's a project that I've been developing since 2017. So it's been an ongoing project where I'm exploring the term limerence. And then limerence is a coin term on the 70s, like to understand the misunderstanding, therefore the mispractice of love. Mm-hmm. And then how limerence all of a sudden can become an element to study behaviors between communities and regions. So I travel around different residencies across the Caribbean, and I've done twice in Barcelona, just like having conversations with artists and people in the community of like what it means to be a liberal subject, how it means to like being subjected to like this mixed practice of love. The one I'm showcasing here is the very first one that I did back in 2017. And where I had the opportunity to have for the first time a live performance of the piece. So, yeah.
Gracias, Pati. So to continue the conversation geographically, also part of being representing the Caribbean and the Dominican Republic, I'm a huge fan and admirer of the work that you do. It's beautiful, and your performance piece also was very. I think it was so mesmerizing to see the piece come to life, live and in person, with you as you were making it. And so I'm really interested to hear a little bit from you. You normally don't do performance, but this was like your first performance, live performance.
Yes.
And so, if you could tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Sure. So as I mentioned, like this is something I've been developing since 2017. Having the opportunity to look back into the trajectory of the series and bring it to life here in another context, in another time, in another body, because it's not I'm carrying the same mind and body that I was carrying back in 2017. It was like really, how can I say, like insightful within my own like positionality in my career at this moment, to really look back at what liberals have developed and become for me and the community that I've been working with for the last, how many years? 7 years? So, yes, so 7 years later, also have the opportunity to present because even though this project there's been documentation of forms of performances, it have never been live and shared with people, like having, eyes on me. And having that space and platform.
You were working with the performative code and also with the performative style and everything.
Right.
Because when I see your work, it's super clear for me that there's
a performative something.
Of course, yes. But then one thing is like have the of course the elements to control behind, like in front of the camera, and then the other thing is like actually being in person and sharing as it happening with the people in the room. And something that really like I appreciated and like I'm gonna like take with me as part of the aftermath of the performance is the reaction of people and how they felt and commune with me in that moment, like what it meant for me to, because the person is like making molds of my hands, there's a male character doing this process with me too, I'm kneeling, I'm like, it's hot, it's the eyes of everybody, and then it's just like, just being this moment of like, I felt like it was collective performance to understand, it's like people gaze also make me felt a little bit of like that idea of like limerence, of like what is how I felt, like was it love, it was compassion, it was what was the feeling that was happening there as I am positioning myself as a limerence subject. Yeah, that's how I felt.
Gracias, Tati. Yeah, it was a beautiful piece, and you can see the relics of the performance next to the television. Y algo that I love about the work, and another thing that you have also on view is your hands, that you are using your hands as the subject. You are the subject, but then you're focusing on this part of you to represent the work and this topic. And why did you choose your hands? And was this something that did you consider that, or did you just feel that it was functional?
Well, I mean, when I first did it, I made the decision of starting this project back in 2017. It was a dream, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I was like then doing like some research of like what it meant as a feminized individual, being from the Caribbean, living in the diaspora. At that moment, I was doing a residency in Barcelona, in this town called Berga. So so all of this.
With a V like this, or like
no, yeah.
So
yeah, it's like literally. I went to la Berga.
So Berga, for people that doesn't speak Spanish, is like dick, but in slang. Yeah, thank you.
Pero en la República Dominicana no se ve.
No, en Barcelona. Sí, bueno, no, we don't use that term. We use another slang, but we understand. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, Spanish people know. So I'm like in this space, in this intersection, a super toxic relationship too. On top of that, and I'm researching on like fertility, labor, family, like what does all these elements of immigration, like all of these intersections that are happening to me in that moment. And the person who is in the video is actually the person I was in a relationship with in that moment too. So I had this dream where I was like in this room kind of trapped. Somebody came in, did this mold of my hands and my feet. And then they did like a flower pot with my hands and my feet. Kind of like, but it felt like a nightmare. It wasn't necessarily like a epiphany or something, good, or the emotion was just like I felt trapped, and I turned into like this mujer florero, or trophy woman, and I was just like, no. Okay, this is a project. This is what I'm doing. This is what is going on, but I'm gonna repurpose it. Like how I can change that dream, that nightmare, to a dream, to a epiphany, to a process, to a performative process that I can really get in touch and heal the limerence moments and intersections that were attacking me in that moment. So that's why I'm choosing the hands and position them in spaces that I felt that could give purpose to the results of the things that I was researching or interacting with in that moment.
Yeah, me encanta porque there's such a conversation between the hands on this side of the room and then la pieza de Elisa. So I'm going to move on to you next. And you can see here the gloves that are woven and then braided through. And the video here, obviously you understand how the piece is activated through performance. And I think also as an artist who works not necessarily performance based, but with your body as a plastic artist, así como Patti también en your visual, tu trabajo visual. And also having done this long durational performance here as part of the residency, can you expand on that? What has that been like for you? Is this technically your first performance as well?
It is technically my first performance, definitely. I was also encouraged by Natacha. I had actually done a similar performance to the durational one, but it can't really be called a performance because I did it for myself, so it was more of a kind of a research of, I didn't know it would end up happening this way. I have worked with performance artists and done performance film in a way, but it's also, as Patricia said, it's also, even though that was filmed completely, I ended up editing cuts. So I kind of think this process of being in a place where I can do a performance and just go with what happens also will kind of influence, in a way, next performances and maybe not limiting time and edit. And I'm working with a durational performance upstairs. You're welcome to come. I never considered myself as putting my body. It's been an experience. I still am not sure completely, the process of it, because it's going to end, I'm still halfway or not even halfway through. But yeah, it's a lot, but it's part of it.
Well, also the experience is really different because she had like a performance moment, like a specific one, and you're having like a long durational one. So the experiences are really different.
Yes, definitely. And I'm also getting moments where I perform just for myself. There are moments where nobody's here at the house and I just sit down there, and it's kind of a performance that is, I don't know, this idea of if the tree falls, is someone watching, I don't know, I feel like it's more fun.
Elisa put really specific hours to do her performance that she's doing in her studio. So sometimes at the hours that are really difficult, there's no one here, but she's doing the performance. But sometimes the hour that she selected to do the performance, there is people. So the action is changing all the time through time. Also a factor that I really like about her performance is that she's doing this performance that you can explain more what it is about, listening to the radio in Argentina. So suddenly she changed what she's doing while she's receiving different information from our country. So I think that factor that she was able to include in her piece is really important. How, despite she doesn't come from a performance background, she was able to select this thing that appeared to include it in her work.
Yes, so I'll briefly explain to that. So the performance represents like 2023 cases of femicide in Argentina. So what I'm doing is I'm translating 360 days of a year into 30 days in a calendar. And there's one femicide every 35 hours. So I sit down and I encode this information through colors in a textile every 35 hours, basically. And yes, at the same time, I'm also listening to the news to see if at the same time now, it's live news in Argentina, there is any case of femicide. And if there is, I annotate it in a different color. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to have like these two ranges of time happening in a way, or maybe even three, the way I'm trying to code 1 year into 30, and there's like a lot of overlapping of information going on, but yeah, it's interesting. I think I don't have that covered. Yeah, I just cry basically. I have feelings. And yeah, they're somewhere there. But I think it's very interesting because I am slowly going into certain type of work that Natacha is specialized in this kind of way of working, from what I understand, from the body, but also the mind, and also understanding how to take care of all of that while you're also performing. So I think for me it's very recent, so I haven't really tapped into that. I'm just trying to process it, write down, see how I feel, just try to be aware while I'm doing it. But it's a very valid question. I don't really know.
Like journaling?
Yeah, I always journal, but all the time with all my work. Yeah, that helps.
I want to do a small intervention. I think something that is interesting is that this invitation is done by me, but for like to be part of Argentina Performance Art production. Argentina Performance Art is the first theoretical platform that studies performance art in Argentina. That's how it started. Then I brought it here and we start researching about South American performance art. And suddenly the concept of South American is everything is super wide and is super variable, super malleable about how people understand themselves as being like behind or above United States. Below, thank you. Being below United States. So we are all South Americans in those senses. I think it's interesting two things. How I put together artists that had a really big background in performance, like amazing careers in performance, and other artists that have amazing careers but not doing exactly direct live performance. They were working with design, they were working with the code of performative something in their work because they are females, they are feminine identities, they are queer persons, they are people that they are going through what we are going through. And these news, no matter if you are listening to them or we are not, we were born in those contexts. We were born among those news. So despite you are not listening to them, I know all of them, they are processing this information in different ways. And in each context, this information changed a lot, but at the same time, we're all here trying to survive. And that's part of the exhibition. Like we are fighting to survive, we are coming here for a better whatever, better money, better health, better survival, but then we are dealing with other things that sometimes add more complexity of how we need to survive. So for me, that's the rebirth situation that they are doing in different ways and in their own como deformes maneras. And yeah, I thought that's interesting to say also why they were these first performances, like live performances. It was an invitation, they took it. And I'm so grateful that everyone here did a performance and Domenica is doing one today. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a really good segue to ask you, Ome, because I love your work. We've worked together. And then your performance and the motions and the movements that you use in your performance or the subjects that you use in your performance is very like bringing out the lo cotidiano that I think we touch upon in different ways and in our work, but also to focus on you, like la cotidianidad de las perfos, that you focus on what you choose to do as part of your performance work, and talking about the femme experience in processing trauma, in processing loss, in mourning. I think as art, as a medium, is a way for us to go through that, but you obviously go through that in your own way and in your performance. And not only the performance that you're about to do today, but also the work that you have on view right now is a relic of a previous performance that you had done called Mi Cuerpo Sana al Ritmo de las Olas. So my body heals to the rhythm of the waves. And I want you to just tell us a little bit about, like, you know, what that performance was, and this performance that you're going to do, why you chose this, so we have an understanding.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the performance I did was also with Natacha through Argentina Performance Art back in November. And the piece is a very intimate piece that explores my body healing through an abortion. And so with the piece, I just wanted to, one, process my own experience through it, but I was also thinking about how it kind of reminded me of my own personal connection to just nature and the environment, and to some degree like how that gets mirrored with my own body. So that's why the imagery of the ocean and the sand and the shells came into fruition as a representation of that, also thinking of the ocean as something that's very cyclical in rhythm. And yeah, and I think part of the project was also a desire to just talk about this experience that a lot of women share, and I feel that it's sometimes not talked about. So even going through that experience and understanding like what that meant on receiving care, on how to process emotionally or physically, whatever. And I think also opening up about that conversation has allowed me to have more conversations with women who've experienced, whether it's abortions or miscarriages, about just the process itself, where to get care, how to receive help, etc., etc. So yeah, so the piece also has an audio component. So the shells I used in the piece, and there was an audio piece where I just whisper, my body heals to the rhythm of the waves. And it was a very soothing, meditative piece, just like kind of creating a lullaby for myself.
Like cathartic.
Yeah.
Process of
just like healing, but I think also thinking about like our bodies also at the same time are very resilient, and sometimes we just don't really have to do anything. We just have to sit, wait, and let the things to heal on its own. That's with any wound, right? Like you just gotta let time do its thing. So yeah, so the sound is not on at the moment, but eventually we'll put it on, so you can get a listen to that. Yeah.
And the performance that you're gonna do today is La Llorona.
It's La Llorona. It's a piece about crying. I love to cry in public. It's like a thing I just generally really like, and I think it's very particular of New York. There is very limited private space because we are in such tight places that I think a lot of the public space is forced to become private to some degree. And like that is why so many private things happen there, and we're kind of very used to that. So I was thinking really about how there's this collective awareness that when people cry on the street, we give them space because we know that this might be the only place where they can freely do that. So there is this like collective understanding, collective creating of space for emotion. So then thinking about La Llorona, it's a woman who walks in the street crying and weeping, and she's like a very traditional Mexican, like classic ghost. So thinking about this idea of like why is a woman crying a ghost to begin with, and how that can be reframed in the context of now, when we sometimes are women just walking, or people walking in the street crying. So thinking of just like reclaiming that space and just owning this experience and emotions that we all feel to some degree. So,
yeah, I think there's like so many, the reclaiming and the reappropriating of what that, like, the La Llorona is such an alienated, like, you know, character, and she's, what's the word for it? Como,
Desplazada.
Sí, como rechazada from society. And it's like, I think women crying, women processing trauma, and in these spaces we often find ourselves in this position of being alienated and pushed away or cornered, and like nobody wants to see a woman cry, or like that's all we ever see, like that's all a woman ever does is cry, like just really, you know, reductive of the female experience and the reclaiming of the space of doing that in public. And I think there's a dichotomy that happens. It's like, yeah, at the same time you're like reinforcing, like, you know, because, you know, crying, showing emotion in any capitalistic world is just like weakness, and, you know, especially as
And I think so too, like part of the process of the project too, even with the photographs, and I think with the performance itself too, it's also about creating this this ritual of crying, and from it being something scary, ugly, something that's supposed to be hidden or pushed away, that it's actually transforming and it becomes something that's very beautiful and very peaceful, and it's something that it's actually desired to look at. And I think that's what I was trying to do with the photographs with my collaborator Mason, just thinking of these like very beautiful photos of somebody. I'm not taking pride of a portrait.
They look like the Virgin, like they kind of remind me of like La Virgen, like the crying. It's like all of the tropes, you know, that you see of women being portrayed, always in relation to men, and not just like having that space for yourself. And for a process that's completely your own, that like has nothing to do with anybody else, and yet like it's always associated with these other people. I think that the way that you portray it, and also to go into Sujetka's work, like the feeling alienated and feeling and the guilt and these emotions and that feel burdensome, that we are, you know, taught to be ashamed of experiencing, but also as a migrant femme body in a space outside of your, you know, that you're not comfortable with, or you're putting in a space of, you talk about the service industry and what that experience is like. And also, I mean, the piece that we have here is so, like, very strong, clearly, like, perdón is sorry, what is this, the caution tape?
Yeah, like the police tape.
Yes. So, like, can you talk to us a little bit more about that narrative?
So I think that, I basically talk about something I forgot to say in my introduction. I talk a lot about like power imbalances and abuse in normalized behaviors, and how like as a society we have these behaviors that are part of like the machismo that we've been growing out, de donde hemos crecido, you know. So for first, that one, I feel that by being South American, I've been grown like on like also like the super conservative society, religious, you know, like, and how all of these guilt, there's guilt in every single continent, every single place. So I talk about the guilt that I've been grown through, and that guilt kind of like limit also myself on like not being able to relate with people or assume certain type of behaviors or accept certain type of behaviors because I want to be accepted, or I want to be I don't know, it's kind of crazy to think that, you know, I say I'm sorry too much, and when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, of course I say I'm sorry. Like, they put that way of growing, like, esa manera de expresar y esa manera de reaccionar hacia ciertas cosas, my way to assume certain responsibilities that are not really my fault, you know, from the house, from the school. I was like in a Catholic school, super conservative. It's like how these we can also like now I came here. There's some type of liberations around being gay. Imagine, like, I was feeling bad of being gay in Peru. Here I can feel a little more free, but I'm still ashamed for some reason, you know. So how this way of how that guilt is a way of manipulation, so like people is at the end under control, bigger control of how a body that carry all that thing from their own context, it's not something that you can really leave behind, you know. You bring it here, and now I feel sorry for new things, you know, things that I didn't know that existed, and I don't know if I'm answering.
No, yeah.
Turn on my culpa.
Sorry, guys. No, it was a joke. And then.
No, but also in power context, who is the person that is paying or assuming the responsibility or is paying the consequences for the power people? They are always the same.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not direct, maybe it's not that we are choosing that. But
and they want you to be submissive.
Yeah.
And
it's
in
also,
the end, is that
it's also kind of crazy how like people that abuse people, they know who it's more like easy to target, you know?
oh yeah.
So like it kind of sucks that like I mean I feel that project is super personal. The performance was like I was inside the box because it's like okay, it's I'm sorry. What does that really mean? It's my refugee. It's my way to not get in trouble, but at the same time, it's my own prison. You know, it's my way of like assuming things, accepting certain type of mistreatment because I'd rather don't fight against, or I'd rather just like say, you know what, like yeah, I'm sorry, and then the repetition is also super important, right? How much is this really now a word that I have value on, like yeah.
Yeah, super powerful. I love I mean, just visually, the play on the police tape, the fact that you're in the box, and then you also did another performance that's, you know, kind of follows that trope of the submission and the power dynamic where you, in the opening of the exhibition, you were carrying around Hershey's Kisses. But they weren't kisses, they were the American dream.
It's like the American flag and there it says dream. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw and we talked about it after.
Yeah.
You want to pass it around so people can?
Yeah, of course.
So
It's only there because it's not in the drawing.
yeah, it's in the drawing too. That was part of the opening day of the exhibition. So we had that day the performance of Patricia and also the performance of Sue. So she was doing that. And the interesting part is that she was representing someone doing service. And some people, they were like engaging with the performance, and some of them, they were like not really like even watching her. They were like, oh, can I have one? Can I have one? And that was so interesting because also, yeah, I mean, for one side, that was part of the purpose of the performance, to emphasize that. But at the same time, it's like how invisible is the people that they are serving us, or how invisible we are when we are serving someone.
Yes.
Despite we went through COVID and everything that was supposed to be the changing moment in the society, worldwide, whatever, doesn't have changed anything. And I've seen different people, like really different people, saying that like, oh, can I have one? Like they were not really watching her, they were not listening the audio that was in the como la bandeja.
Yeah.
Not at all. That was amazing.
I mean, I think that I really thrive on that. Like what I talk about child abuse, woman abuse, and the past works I've done, I've talked about the service industry abuse because it's something that is really common in this city and it's too damage for people. But I feel it's important in that performance to not be seen as an artist doing a performance, but as a normal person doing their job. Because that's what the concept talks about, and how we, literally the person, the server, it's like camouflage on the situations, and how that also that non-awareness of the person is what happens on the abuse inside the industry. How we don't connect with people because they're doing their job, and then how that then it's a reflection on how we don't connect on the abuse that exists, like the systematic abuse that exists on that industry, you know.
Yeah, you're just like holding a mirror to people, or they're just like stepping in without knowing, like subconsciously they're performing to,
exactly.
Like you're saying, and like who was saying about the performance, Pati, that the whole group was also performing through engaging in the piece.
Yeah,
and
it was a participatory, interactive performance.
Yeah, and I think also in my case, what I notice is that from doing performance or by exposing yourself, you end up getting a lot of information, which is also kind of a way of doing research to continue on understanding human behavior from what you're doing. I think I can see that, well, in performance in general. Maybe also true, you have some work even that you're on purpose dictating how certain people have to follow like rules, so you directly include, and by how they activate or not in your performance. I'm not explaining this totally correctly, but
no, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
If you want to see more of my work, I have all my performances upstairs on pictures, and text, so you can see them. But yeah, I do like making a situation where by the observer being a reactor to certain type of things, the meanings turns in different ways.
Yeah.
So I put something there, and the way how people interact with that is how, like, at the end, that the concept is built.
Yeah. I think that's very interesting.
I think, can I take that and go to you?
Okay. Yes.
Because she's moderating, and I think you don't have a question for yourself.
I don't have questions. I didn't think about that.
But I don't know if someone was present for the Mary's performance. I would like to know how the live performance, the live experience of what you did is related to the two pieces that are in the exhibition. How do you see that talking?
Yeah, so for those of you who weren't here, the performance that I did 2 weeks ago was called Llévame al Río, or Take Me to the River. And it was a brief performance where I used my hands to soak my body with water repetitively until I was completely drenched and soaked in water. And my work focuses in this exhibition focuses on the weaponization of the U.S. border and how through policies and over the years, the border itself has become a weapon that's used against migrants, that's used on refugees seeking asylum, and particularly where I live in the South Texas, Rio Grande Valley, the actual physical border between the U.S. and Mexico is El Rio Bravo, or the Rio Grande River, which how we know it in the U.S. And so the video performance that I have on view, I did in 2019, so a few years ago. And I did that after the El Paso massacre that happened, where there was a mass shooting in El Paso at a Walmart. El Paso is also a border town and also has gone through a lot of policies since before Trump even was in presidency. And then shortly after that incident happened, there was also a case where there was a drowning of a father, Oscar Alberto, and his daughter, Valeria. And his daughter was 3 years old, and they were swimming across the Rio Grande River, and they drowned. And so after these events happened, I decided to do my performance in the border because the wall is there. And so I just used kind of mirroring the action. Well, actually, this performance came first, dirt, and I played the song Puño de Tierra, which is a very common Mexican corrido. Mexican corridos are very popular regional music from the north, and the song talks about once you die, like all that you will take with you is just a puño de tierra, you're going to be buried, and that's what you will take with you. And so I used that as a motif in the piece where I would throw soil on the ground, also representing the people who have passed away or gone missing on the border, just symbolically because the numbers exceed the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have gone missing. And so I did that in front of the border wall, and then while I was doing the performance, my whole idea was just to do the soil, but then I really was in this moment where I was kind of in a trance. And so I started washing my body with the dirt, and I ended up soaked full of dirt. And so what I did in this performance very much mirrors what I did in that performance, talking about the same subject, but specifically the performance Llévame al Río was about water because last year the governor of Texas put these mile-long buoys that are like floating, like buoys.
Como vallas.
Yeah, to prevent people from swimming, but it's not just the buoys. They're between the balloons. There's like saw, like metal, and they spin, so you can't actually jump over them, and you can't swim underneath because there's nets that are fastened to the bottom of the river. So it's just to kill people. Like that's literally what it's there for, to prevent people, to scare people from swimming and crossing. But that's what the entire process of the weaponization of the border has been, is just to deter people from going through the border. But and these practices have not just happened in the U.S.-Mexico border, they happen in Mexico with Guatemala. Mexico has like continued to do these same practices and adopted this way of treating migrants and refugees. And so that was the conversation that I was trying to focus on in my performance. And then the chair as well, with the barbed wire on the dress and the bucket of water to kind of represent those people that have, gone missing or drowned, that there's really no clear count because there's no agency that tracks exactly how many people have drowned. But from like Mexico has one track and the US has another tracker, and then within Mexico there's that whole process that people have to go through to even arrive at the border itself. So it's encompassing that imagery and that representation.
And what was interesting is that she put like as installation,
Yes.
she was modifying the space, and she put alambre de púa. How do you say that?
Barbed wire. Barbed wire.
Barbed? That's so weird. Barbed wire. Why? Okay. English is so amazing for me. It's like, okay, barbed wire over there with a graphic sign.
The sign that said no trespassing. So I put barbed wire between the doorway. The audience was on this side. I was on the other side doing the performance. Also to obviously like emphasize that. And one thing that talking about how people engage, after we left, we took it down just for the talk, but after we left the sign up, we were concerned that people were gonna like get hurt, and obviously barbed wire is like, you don't want to get close to it because it's barbed wire. But after the performance happened, I kind of kept looking over to make sure that like no one was, getting hurt. And I saw people going underneath.
Yeah.
The
Instead
barbed
of, like,
wire.
walking around through the other door, people were like
Just crossing through the barbed wire,
like,
which is just like
emphasizing,
re-emphasizing the whole. It's like, even if you tell people to, like, people are going to cross. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, what you put. Like, people are going to cross, and that just re-emphasizes the message of like it's so ironic because it's all it is just
doesn't matter if it's like risky. That's the whole.
People will still do it, and it's like it's futile. It serves nothing but an illusion.
It's like a border is made to be crossed.
Yeah.
They're not real.
They're not real.
Like the barbed wire could be there, but it's like
It's just land.
Yeah, I've heard like it's theatricality, la calidad del borde. Like you have to perform it. Like
it's a
performance.
performative act completely. I mean, I'm from the Dominican Republic, which are at one tiny island with Haiti, and we've been like for the last 200 years like killing each other just because a French person and a Spanish person decided that was the end of our history.
Yeah.
And today we're still like carrying on those fucking colonial legacies. Sorry.
It's fine.
It's colonial legacies. So yeah, like borders, I feel like when I started like with my project, it's kind of like started from like a feminist lens. But then the thing is like I cannot talk about feminism if I don't address these other elements that are really like putting ourselves in this guilt, putting ourselves in this submissive position that continues just like perpetuating these colonial legacies and imaginary theatrical borders.
I have a question.
Yeah, so Dama, if you allowed me, I think we can get this moment a few questions to be respectful for the time of everyone. In a couple of minutes, Domenica is going to start her performance. So I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes for questions.
10 minutes?
Yeah,
10 minutes?
yeah.
Okay. Because Dome, whatever time you need.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do.
Okay, so
we can do
questions.
questions.
So my question is, what's you guys' like stand on language as borders? Like we're speaking English. I mean, that's not the question. Where we're speaking English. I understand that, but I mean language is such a political issue, and it's at play at borders too, right? So what do you guys think about it? Like del español al inglés, de la colonización, ¿no? El imperialismo de la lengua inglesa.
They're all colonial languages.
Spanish is a colonial.
El español es, Spanish is colonial. Nosotros fuimos colonizados, but when everyone said, look, you Spanish people, I'm not Spanish, hello? Wait, stop. I'm Cuban and Caribbean. Spain came to my land and colonized my people, and now I have to speak the language of the people who killed my ancestors, who killed my family. So it's so complex, and it's not just about United States or English. It's just really let's talk about who is the serial killer in here.
But then it's like it's I agree, like it's totally colonial.
Like I have no pride in the Spanish language,
But-
not at all.
But
It's
then,
just I know a little more. That's all.
but then it becomes like kind of like a ¿cómo se dice?
Reafirmar.
Empire, you mean? Like with bringing
Like in
empire?
the U.S., it becomes also like a stand, like political stand, Spanish. Speaking Spanish. Even though the history, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if any of us speak other like indigenous languages or
No.
something.
No, personally, I mean, I don't know how this is gonna sound. I have questioned myself that many forms and times. Like, I mean, I'm against empire, and every form of empire. But I don't think at this point it would serve anything to my fight and my struggle and my community to really focus on the whole language situation at this point in time in history. I believe that like reconnecting and understanding the diversity of languages throughout the regions, like global majority, I would focus in global majority communities, not even global south only, but and try and create other forms of bridges, like through performances, through art, through other forms of lenguajes ancestrales that sadly through language cannot manifest at this point, because the Arhuacos from my island, there are hardly there, and there's some words that I still can carry and use them to like continue manifesting my reconciliation with my land, with IDD at the island, but it's gone at this point. So it's like, I think there's many other forms to honor like that ancestry and to continue the practice of the fight against the empire out beyond the language forms. There's so many forms of languages going there. It's not, that we could like focus more on the spoken one. That's how I feel.
I think to circle back, when we had a brief internal moment with each other before we came to do this conversation where Yali was like, is this va a ser en español o en inglés? And that's where while I was trying to, synthesize everybody's work, like, las preguntas que se me hubieran ocurrido hacer en español would not have been the same questions that I ended up asking in English, just because my way of processing is different. And they were, like, I could feel myself shifting places of where to go into the discussion, talking about these subjects. And si la conversación hubiera sido completamente en español, hubiera sido, yo creo, otra conversación. We would have talked about it in a different way. Your reception would have been different. And then the way that we did it in English, and como que we did it half and half in English and Spanish. But I think that's also part of the re-emphasizing that we are in this, carrying these both places, and we are not just speaking in English, we also are speaking in Spanish. And each place that we come from also does carry jerga y hablar que is not Hispano-Castellano. Like our Mexican words are very different. And you know, we can even address that in that way.
I think I favor to you guys speaking English.
Hay algo que yo sí quiero decir con respecto a eso, porque yo sí he pensado mucho en eso. Esa es una pregunta que tiene que ver mucho con alguien que ha nacido y crecido en Latinoamérica. Como yo nací y crecí en Cuba y hablé español hasta que tuve 22 años más o menos, cuando yo llego aquí yo soy forzada a no hablar mi idioma y hablar el idioma del lugar donde yo estoy. Pero además hay una historia de que los latinoamericanos, los que venimos de origen latino, somos más vistos en los Estados Unidos. Estamos catalogados en diferentes maneras en que no somos percibidos en nuestro valor y sobre todo en nuestra diversidad de orígenes, historias, culturas, nacionalidades y lenguaje. Entonces yo tuve mucho problema con eso. ¿Cómo puedo hablar sobre mi historia, sobre dónde vengo? ¿Cuál es la diferencia mía entre el que nació y creció aquí? No que uno sea ni mejor ni peor, pero hay una diferencia, hay una experiencia distinta que sería increíble que pudiera todo el mundo tener la oportunidad de aprender y ver. Entonces el lenguaje apareció dentro de mi trabajo. En los primeros perfumes yo hablaba con acento, porque yo hablo inglés con acento, eso nunca va a cambiar. Yo hablo con acento cubano y donde quiera que yo hable van a saber que ella es extranjera, ella es inmigrante, ella no pertenece a este lugar y nunca va a pertenecer aunque haya estado viviendo aquí 15 años, 20, 25. Pero Patricia está diciendo algo muy interesante, algo que yo llegué como artista también. Hay muchas maneras de poder manejar el lenguaje sin la palabra. Y es ahí donde estoy ahora.
Sí. Y I'm not endorsing Latinoamericanidad right now, in this moment. I think al final del día, Latin American, the glue of la Latinidad is the colonizer. So I think I can relate to my global majority communities through many other forms. Que, no sé, vamos a hablar del cimarronaje, vamos a hablar de la indigeneity, vamos a hablar de, I don't know, what does Romagoza, there's so many abierta. The rebirth of abierta, how does that look like for South America, for the Caribbean? You know, so it's I think that's where my mind and political entity ends right now when it comes to languages, afinidad, etc.
Personally, about language, what interested me so much is that it's a sign, a communication sign that changed a lot through every culture and how Damari says we have different Spanishes, completely different Spanishes. Something that captures a lot my attention is when we, no matter who, is taking some concept in English and transforming it and putting it again in their own way. Dominicans, they do that all the time. Sometimes we don't understand what they are saying because, but that happens to me a lot. Like we speak in Spanish, all of us, and sometimes we are not understanding because they are taking a concept in English, they are transforming it in Spanish, then they retransform it. So I cannot understand the Latino base, from where you're taking this concept. It's for me, doesn't make any sense, English, the wire, whatever you told me. That doesn't keep in my mind because it doesn't connect with anything.
Yeah.
And when Dominicans that does, it's they are recolonizing the language. Suddenly they are taking English. If you're born there, you think that's the Spanish. But you need to get out of the art to understand that that's not Spanish.
Sometimes I'm speaking in Spanish with other people and I'm saying a word and they're like, what? And I'm that's not a Spanish word.
I'm what are you?
I've been saying it my entire life, I thought it was Spanish and they're like, no.
So I think we can do that in so many ways. The feminist movement in Argentina, where I'm from, is super different from here, and the movement took so many concepts in Spanish and also we're transforming it. So we are changing the way we speak in Spanish as well, as part of the resistance. Because there's a concept that we all know in general: if something is not named, doesn't exist. We need representation. So for that, we are also creating different ways of expressing things that they're not really there in the language. Like, for example, how do you manifest a neutral identity? Here you use they, but in Spanish usamos la e, como ella, y ese tipo de cambios, ¿no? Y cómo we can change all the words in feminine, for example. Everything we can put it in a feminine identity just to do opposition. But yeah, I think in terms of language, I think we need to be able to communicate and we can recolonize as Dominicans.
Is there just one more question from anybody before we? Yes?
Talking about language and going back to the kind of like themes of the body and the corporeal, I think that y'all have managed to really establish that connection to the body as like a symbol of expression and of the land. And I know it's different for every single person because the diversity of bodies and lands that we come from obviously like informs the way that we're able to like engage and express. But thematically, I guess I want to hear a little bit more about that connection that you guys have managed to really establish with your body, with the land that you're from, with the community that you're sort of like a part of, just because I think performance in and of itself is a beautiful form of expression that kind of transcends these barriers that we were talking about, into sort of like, you know, reaching the universal, the experience of existing within this form, and like, you know, how we embrace and carry the wounds that we embrace and carry, and how we purge, the way the body purges, which I think a lot of your work is about purging and healing. And so I just kind of want to hear, because everybody has such a beautiful and distinct relationship with that sort of like, I don't know, journey. So yeah, I just want to kind of hear about that.
Super easy question. Thank you, Lenny. I think Natacha, if you could give an answer to that, because I think the way that you work and talking as the body as a territory, and in your practice, you've also developed your own like practice for, you know, training the body and the mind and the spirit. Yes. in that way.
Yeah, I need to breathe. My work is not here. I invite all these amazing artists because I feel not similar things, but I can relate to all of them in different ways. And I can understand them in so many different ways. My case, I take as land my own body. And that's not metaphorically. That's direct. That's my flesh. That's my fat. That's my blood, that's my hair, that's directly my land. I'm a survivor of psychological abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and so many other things. So I carry that in my body. And I've learned throughout the years how to reclaim myself over and over again. Sometimes in ways that are not healthy, sometimes in ways that are repeating what I went through. But sometimes I need to do that just to do it myself, because that's a way to say, this is mine. So if this is mine, I can burn it. If this is mine, I can kill it. And I know it can sound extreme, but also what I went through is really extreme. So when you learn that, when you grow from there, so many things are happening to be able to transform. So I think my relationship with my land is to reclaim it all the time, because if I don't keep on reclaiming it, I think I'm going to lose it. And that feeling of like I'm losing myself, or someone else is owning me, or like I'm dying here, no, I need to kill myself. You know that? Like when you know someone could potentially kill you, it's like, no, yes, I'm going to do it.
To have agency.
Yes. So I think we can find this feeling is not mine. I think we carry it, all of us, in different ways, or our moms, or our grandmas, or our neighbors, all of us here in different ways. Different situations, we don't need to be a survivor specifically to go through that. I think so many less situations we can feel that, and performance art, in my case, was one more survival tool to understand, to transform, and to be here able to speak in a healthy way.
Thank you. I think we can close with that. Does anybody?
Oh my God.
Thank you, everybody.